Hello, and welcome to the third Share Project discussion group. Today's topic is childhood. As we age, our memories of youth become suffused with distance and soft focus. Is it inevitable that today's juniors will have the same fond nostalgia for times past? Or is it possible that we are witnessing the beginning of the ending of childhood as a time of innocence and security?
We start with favourite childhood memory. What's your favourite childhood memory?
Well, mine takes place in Cyprus. Just there were these fields of, the flowers, narcissus flowers. Well, basically they're a bit like daffodils, but they have a really strong smell. I just used to ride my bike to these fields and just pick them and decorate my bike with them. So.
Now that's weird because my favourite childhood memory is bicycle riding.
Oh.
It was the freedom of being able to just get on your bike and just ride around. Firstly, ride around the block, and then riding around. And you used to be able to go to the wood, and that was 3 miles away. Can you imagine a 10-year-old in an ordinary middle-class family being allowed to drive 3 miles on a bike and then just travel
disappear into a wood
all the way around? And there was never any perspective of danger. That you'd be maybe aware of strangers that you had to avoid, but other than that, it was just one great big adventure. Just freedom, really.
Do you still ride bicycle?
Yeah.
And do you still have that sense of freedom? Because I sometimes do when I ride my bicycle, although I'm wary because in London and the traffic, so I don't ride very much, but I cycle a bit.
It's a horrible experience in London, I think.
Well, I go off. I don't ride on the main roads. I just go down to the canal from where I live through the park.
But now I'm aware of how healthy it's making my poor old body.
Oh, I see, that sense of freedom.
But I remember the very first time I was 14 and I went on a youth hostel association bike ride with 2 friends, and the 3 of us went from Birmingham up to Wales for 10 days, just riding and then stopping in a youth hostel every night. That, I remember, really was fun. But what's your favourite memory?
I guess, okay, I'll pick one. During the summer, my dad used to come home from work, say at about 5:30, and because we lived sort of 20 minutes drive from the beach, we would pack up a little few sandwiches and a flask of tea, and we'd go off to the beach and have a sort of a swim as the sun was setting, because obviously the evenings there weren't as long as the fantastic evenings you have here in England. So we'd have a swim, and it was usually pretty cold, quick swim, and then we'd have some tea and sandwich, and then it was dark by then, and pack up and go home and have supper. So it was a really nice thing to do, actually. If my dad could get back from work early enough, we would do that.
Yeah.
What about you?
Mine's also by the beach. There's a waterfall in Jamaica, quite a famous waterfall, Duns River Falls, which we live quite near to. And at some point in the summer, there used to be one day which was sort of, you just knew when the day arrived. Nobody mentioned it, but you just sort of knew when the day arrived. And we would arrive part of the ritual was the morning before, we had to go and catch some fish and crabs from the local river. That's our lunch. And we took all of that with us, and we got to the beach at the bottom of the falls. You dug a hole in the sand and you wrapped the fish in plantain leaves, and you buried them in the sand. And then you went up and climbed up to the top of the falls, by which time the sun is coming up. By the time you come back down to the falls, the sand is cooked. The fish.
Oh, brilliant.
Just the sun?
Yes.
Oh, how
So you don't light a fire?
No, we just used to cook it in the hot sand. And it was the most delicious thing. And you'd be sitting in the water, the paddle in the water, the sun beating down and eating these fish which is cooked, that we'd caught that morning as well. And it was just the most amazing. I took my daughter when she was about 4, and my nephew. I took them home to get that experience. as well. And thankfully, that little bit of the waterfall is still open to the citizens and the public. It's not being claimed by the hotels, so we can still use it.
So you could still do that
We can
with
still
them?
do that.
Oh, fantastic.
And what about what were some of your worst memories of childhood?
Do we want to go there?
I can tell you mine. I can tell you mine now because it's still maybe.
Let's not go there.
At the end of the summer, my grandma used to deworm the children and the dogs and the cats. So the weekend before school reopens, we would all line up in terms of height. So the tallest child and the cats at the end, and she would start at one end, you put your tongue out, and she'd squirt some foul-smelling things on there, and it went down to the cats and the dogs, and they would sit there as well. And after that, you ran very quickly to the nearest, and so we were purged because of all the nasty things that we'd eaten over the summer.
Well, I think for me, I think it was the regular brutality of the teachers. From the age of 5, you were hit by teachers. You would be smacked on the leg. You'd be smacked on the hand.
I remember that. They used to inspect our nails every Monday. And if we hadn't got short, clean nails, whacking over our hands with a ruler, yes.
Yeah.
No, not here in Cyprus.
With a ruler. And then when you went to secondary school, then being beaten with a cane, certainly in grammar schools, was part of the experience. And the very first school that I went to at 11, there was a boy aged 11, and the head teacher at Bablake School, Coventry, was an ex-Oxford Blue, and he used to beat children, 6 of the best, and this boy got 10 because he cried. Imagine an 11-year-old being beaten by a 6'2" Oxford rowing Blue, and because he cried, he wasn't a proper man, and so he got more. So that's what.
Yeah.
And I think the change, in a lot of ways, a lot of people don't like it, but I think the impact and the change was really, really positive. And all of the people who I knew in their 20s, were the nastiest, heaviest, most psychopathic kids, were all ones who'd been to the Catholic Brothers schools, where it was endemic, where never mind sexual abuse, just the physical abuse was just part and parcel of experience. So that was my more negative sides. What other experiences have you got?
I mean, it's very interesting because obviously it's not allowed. You're not allowed to do that in schools anymore, but they still won't make hitting one's own child illegal in this country, which I think is a big mistake, really, and they should. And there's a lot of opposition to it. Well, there's a lot of opposition to making it illegal in schools as well. I can't go to my worst childhood memory. I don't quite know what it is.
But I had
I don't know about
smacking on the hand, but mine, and I think that hurt more than anything else because I was so flabbergasted, was actually by nuns.
The shock of it.
Yeah, by nuns actually hitting you, but they were absolutely cruel. They had metal rulers and they would bend your hand over so that it forms a fist, and then they'd use the side of the metal ruler and they'd hit you on your
that's particularly
knuckle.
sadistic.
And all the time they were saying their Hail Marys at you, and whatever vestiges of thought I had of Catholicism, that just killed it. And I've never ever recovered from that position. I just think it's the most hypocritical thing I've ever experienced on that.
On
and
a
it could be for
lighter
the worst thing, just arriving, your nails, not just cut, but all of them not the same level.
Wow.
She used to go like that. Oh, she was vicious.
Oh, yeah. What about entertainment? Because one of the things that stands out for me was there was very little television. It was only one, and then there became 2 channels. It was black and white. So going to the cinema was a great thing, and on a Saturday morning there would be the children's matinees where all of the kids would be completely unleashed in madness. But so the result was we spent an enormous amount of time reading. So reading comics, reading books. It was just part and parcel of your childhood, was being the reading at school, but then also reading for fun, reading in the evening, or listening to the radio, the crystal radio boxes. I remember listening after you had to go to bed, you could hide under the covers and listen to your crystal radio box, very, very quietly. Well,
I grew up without television. In South Africa, we didn't get television until much later.
Same here. Not until the age of 9 when I came here. Yeah.
So I spent my whole because the weather was generally good, you spent most of your time outside. I played a lot of sport, and I used to hang out with friends. We used to sort of be a little neighbourhood gang and go exploring the neighbourhood on our bicycles. And I used to read, but we used to play card games and at home. And so, I mean, I used to listen to the radio, but generally it was more of an outdoor life and playing games, Scrabble, cards, whatever was around.
Mine was storytelling. My grandparents really always started off by my great-grandmother, and we were just outdoors as well, usually after exhaustion of roaming the whole village, and we would just sit outside. I remember there were just the stars and the crickets, sound of the insects through the night. The nights getting increasingly darker, and just spontaneously my great-grandmother would start telling stories. And then after a while, it would be like almost like a competition to see who could tell the best tale. And that would just sort of go on endlessly. Some of them were sort of true recounting of events. Others was just imagination. So we would, she would look at the star and said, "Oh, that's the god of thunder's cousin who's going to see him," and you had to weave a story around that.